My research looks at educational outcomes for a bunch of 9-year-olds from the Growing Up in Ireland survey. So these children did a test known as the Drumcondra test in reading and mathematics. Now I break up the group into 4 groups depending upon the level of their mother's education, ranging from mums who left school before the age of 16 up to mums who got a university education. And I look to see if there are differences in the educational outcomes according to the mum's level of education. What I find is that there is quite a significant difference in outcomes. In particular, there is what we'd call a gradient there, in that children whose mums have university level education do significantly better in these reading and mathematics tests than do the children whose mums left school before the age of 16. Now, we know that there is a gradient in educational outcomes for children at second level and a third level, but where I think my research is interesting is that we show that this kicks in at a very, very early age, at age 9. Now, we tried to break down that gap between educational outcomes into the part which is accounted for by characteristics that we can observe from the data set and by characteristics that we can't observe, or indeed differential returns to the observed characteristics. We find it breaks down about 50-50. So that about 50% of this gap is accounted for by characteristics which the data shows us, but there's another 50% which we just really can't account for. The research is important because education appears to be correlated with lots and lots of important life outcomes. It's correlated with your future earnings, it's correlated with your future employment prospects, it's correlated with future outcomes in terms of health. In general, there are social returns to education as well, in that a society which has got a highly educated population will generally have better outcomes on a range of dimensions than societies that have relatively lower rates of educational outcomes. So it seems important that all children should have the opportunity to acquire or to do as well in education as their potential would let them, and that they shouldn't be prevented by arbitrary circumstance such as chance of birth. Now, what we see is that there are large differences, and so therefore this is evidence of some degree of inequality of opportunity in education. If we can reduce these gaps, if we can bridge these gaps to some degree, that should allow for higher educational achievements and outcomes for deprived children. That should also enhance socioeconomic mobility, in the sense that these are children who are coming from deprived backgrounds already. And so therefore, if we can improve their educational outcomes, it'll give them a chance, if you like, to do better in life, get better outcomes in terms of their health, and then in turn that could be passed on to their children. So from the point of view of socioeconomic mobility, the research does point to the existence of these gaps, and it points to some tentative policy areas. It does appear that school characteristics are not as important as within home or within family characteristics, which in itself is quite challenging in terms of the policy initiatives you might like to introduce, because clearly it's more difficult for a government or a policymaker to intervene within the house or within the family than it is to provide more resources in a school. So perhaps, tentatively, we might look at issues like courses in parenting skills and interventions to improve parenting skills. That might be a profitable route to go down.